We're coming up to Purim, which is on Saturday night and Sunday. On Purim, we read the Megillah, which is the story of the festival, what happened on Purim. And funnily enough, during the Megillah, we don't find the mention of God's name once, which is unusual because throughout all the books of the Torah, God's name is mentioned numerous times. Why is that? What's the lesson for us? Well, the story of Purim, if we look at it, we have a character by the name of Haman, who was a Hitler type of person, and he wanted to wipe out the Jewish people, and he found a chance, because the king at the time, he agreed to Haman's plan, and the king, Achashverosh, who was his name, ruled 127 countries. He ruled the whole of the civilized world. At the same time, the king had forcefully married a Jewish lady by the name of Esther, who was a queen. And in addition to that, one of his head advisors, who had actually saved his life, was Mordechai the Jew. Mordechai. At this time, though, even though the Jews were doing well politically with these two characters, Haman still was able to get the king to make such a decree to wipe out the whole of the Jewish people. When Esther and Mordechai found out about this decree, Esther told Mordechai, you have to fast for 3 days consecutively. Get all the Jewish people to fast for 3 days consecutively. And I'm also going to do it. And they explained why they were going to fast for 3 days. Because the Jews had benefited from a feast which the king had made. And there was non-kosher food there. And they felt happy that they had gone, important they had gone to such a feast. And because of this terrible thing that they had done, the consequence was this decree. Now, Esther realized that she had to go and see the king. But to go and see the king wasn't an easy matter. You had to be called at least 30 days, summoned 30 days prior to going to him. If you weren't, and you just turned up, that meant the person would be put to death. But Esther realized she had to go and see the king. She had to go and self-sacrifice for her people. And that's what she did. But before that, she said, we have to fast 3 days. But the fasting doesn't make sense. Why? Because the whole reason why the king married her was because of her beauty. Because she was one of the most beautiful women in history. And when one fasts, that takes away, that diminishes one's grace, one's beauty. So surely she should have made herself look more beautiful. She should have eaten more. Let the Jews fast. Why is she fasting? And the reason is, and this is the lesson one of the lessons from Purim, that we have to know that the main thing is a spiritual. That's what we have to put our effort in. We also have to make a vessel for God's blessing within nature. But the vessel, the vessel for God's blessing within nature, what we do to be able to get that, is not the main thing. That's not where the focus is. The focus is the Torah which we learn, and the commandments, the mitzvahs that we do. So it would be like if someone put their focus on the physical, just on acting in a politically correct way. Diplomacy is the main thing, and just putting their hope in that. That would be like writing out a check in one's best writing with calligraphy, going to the bank but having no money in the bank. The main thing is having the money. You write out a check. Okay, no, it's a check. You can write it out nice. It's just a way that we can get the money out. The same thing is on a global level for the Jewish people, that we have to know that we have to do the right things in a diplomatic way, but that's not the main thing. That's not the focus. The focus is the spiritual, making sure that we're doing the right thing with between a man and man, and between God and man, according to the Torah. And also on an individual level, even in a time where we don't see godliness, where godliness, so to speak, there's a mask. We don't see his presence within our lives or within the world. It's hidden. Just like the Megillah does not have God's name mentioned once. We have to know that God is there. We have to know that he cares about us. And we have to know that the main thing we have to focus on is the spiritual, is making sure that we're doing the right thing according to what he wants. Now, during Purim, there are 4 commandments, there are 4 obligations which we have, which are very easy to do. By night and by day, twice, we have to hear the Megillah from a kosher scroll. And we have to hear the whole Megillah, every word of it. In addition to that, we have to, during the day, specifically during the day, have another 3 commandments, 3 obligations. 1, we have to find one of our Jewish friends and give them 2 different types of food, important foods, which are readily eatable. In other words, you give some cake and a canned drink, or you give them a whole meal. Or potatoes and chicken, or if they're a vegetarian schnitzel, whatever it is. But 2 different types of foods, or food and an important drink. And you have to give that to at least one person. So that would mean men also giving to men and women giving to women. And this should preferably be done through an agent, through someone else. So when I give it to someone, and I tell them, please do me a favor, give it to my friend Moshe Pipik. The 3rd commandment, the 3rd obligation of the day, is to give 2 different poor people charity. 2 different Jews who are in need, to give them charity. So, if one can't find those poor people on the actual day, then one should separate money and put it aside. And when one does find those people, then one should give it to them, or give it to someone who knows of those poor, and specifically poor people who are in need, and he should give it to them. And the 4th mitzvah, the 4th commandment of the day, is to have, and specifically again during the day, is to have a feast, to have a meal. One should eat and be merry on that day. And during the meal, we have an obligation for men to drink some alcohol, a bit of alcohol, and to be merry. Obviously, one has to be careful how much they drink, and if it's something negative is going to happen because they're drinking, then they shouldn't. But if to drink a bit more than usual. And these are the 4 commandments, the 4 obligations of the day. In addition to, we actually do say an extra prayer, Al Anissim. And this is how we celebrate Purim. And we also have a bit of a feast, a bit of a meal during the night, although that's not really the obligation. I said that obligation is during the day. And it should be this year in Yerushalayim, in Jerusalem, and we should be celebrating there Purim. Have a happy Purim. Mashiach now. Think about it.